Welcome to Tech Notice. This over here is a PFY Maverick. This over here is a Feiyutech Ak2000 gimbal. Which one should you get? Which one is the best? Well, that's why you're here, aren't you? Okay, this head-to-head is gonna go like this. We're gonna go through some different categories. I'm gonna give a point to each one who wins the category. Okay, let's do it. The first one is the price. Feiyutech Ak2000 gimbal comes in around $300 or $380, around $400, something like that. Depends if there's deals on the things like that. The Maverick comes in at $750, around that. By the way, I've got a 5% discount for this bad boy in the description. And if you want to pick up this one, the link is in the description as well. So for the price, I'm going to give it for the Feiyutech. Now the next up is build quality. I can't say anything bad about neither of these gimbals because both of them are built with metal and plastic and everything feels solid and very, very well built gimbals. So for this one, I'm going to give it a draw. Next up is design. Now design is very much, you know, what you like, but I think for design I'm gonna have to give it a draw for both of them as well, because both of them have a black and red type of theme going on. Both of them are metal, there's a lot of matte black. It's all both very, very similar with these gimbals, so I'm gonna give it a draw as well. Depends which one you like more. The Maverick over here has more like a round arm over here, whereas the Feiyutech is more like a sharp one. I prefer sharper corners and sharper designs, but to be honest, I'm just gonna have to give it a draw. The weight. Now, obviously it's better if the gimbal weighs less because it's easier to operate it with. So this Feiyutech over here comes in 1,250 grams, and that's without the batteries. There are 4 batteries inside, so the batteries go on top, whereas the Maverick over here is 997 grams with the batteries. So the Maverick's gonna win in this one big time. Next up is the payload capacity. Now the Maverick over here can support weights or camera weight up to 4.08 kg. Whereas the Feiyutech over here can support to 2.72 kg. So I'm gonna give it to the Maverick. But I'm gonna make a comment over here. You can't balance cameras on the Maverick here that have a battery grip. If the center of the gravity goes too high, it's either gonna hit the back of your roll axis, or you can't balance it because the pitch arm over here is too short. Whereas the Ak2000 over here, you have more options. As you can see over here, I've balanced just this random old film camera with the battery grip on, and I've managed to balance my A6500 as well as the A7S II with the battery grip over here, but I can't do it over here. Whereas over here, if you have more heavier cameras that are maybe lower profile, then it's gonna work better over here. But I'm still gonna give it to the Maverick because just how the payload works and how you can adjust the payloads, it's much easier on the Maverick than on the Ak2000. But just a note, you know, battery grips, it's better over here. Next up, portability. These are one-handed gimbals. They're made for run and gun shooting, so the more portable, the better. I'm gonna give it to the Maverick, and here's why. This over here is the bag that the Maverick comes in. It's like a backpack. You can just slot the Maverick over here, and there's little tightening like straps over here. 2 straps, very easy to in and out, and you're shooting, you're off to go. The Ak2000, this Feiyutech gimbal, comes in a bag like this, a box like this. Now the bad side about this is that this box is fixed. As you can see over here, the slots or the space where the gimbal can go in is completely fixed. You can't adjust any of this. So once you have balanced your gimbal or your camera on the gimbal and you've moved the axes about, you can't put the gimbal back in the box because it doesn't fit anymore. Whereas with the Maverick, you can balance your camera, take the camera off, throw it in a bag, next time take it off, put the camera on, you balance again. Whereas with the Feiyutech, you're gonna have to rebalance. So that's why the Maverick wins. Screen view. Both of these gimbals feature the 45 or lower roll axis and the back over here, which means that you can see the screen of the camera over here or the back of the film compartment over here. So it's going to be a draw. Next up, balancing and setup. How easy is it to set up and balance your camera on it? I've balanced multiple cameras on this gimbal over here, and the same over here on this side. So I can tell you that it's much easier to balance a gimbal on this Maverick over here. And even if you don't get the perfect balance where you can point the camera in any direction, it's still gonna perform very, very well, and the motors are not gonna go crazy. Whereas on the AK2000 over here, you're gonna have to balance the camera very, very perfectly in order to get the best performance out of this gimbal. And one other thing is that the AK2000 has this like little kind of hatch or like a little sling that you're gonna have to move in order to tighten the quick release plate onto the bottom of the quick release plate over here. And I prefer the knob design that is here on the Maverick, because there's been so many times where I've tried to tighten this one and I've actually moved the camera already back out of balance, and I've had to rebalance it because just how this quick release system over here works. So you have to put quite a lot of pressure in, and sometimes you just put the force in the wrong place and the camera moves out of place, whereas it's much easier on the Maverick. So the Maverick gets this one. Battery life. Now I'm gonna give it a draw for this one because both of these manufacturers advertise a 12-hour of usage for the gimbal. Now I have never actually run out of battery, and it's really hard for me to know exactly how long the battery lasts, because every time I'm going on a new shoot, I'm always recharging my batteries to the full, and I'm never going to the shoot with a half empty battery or not full battery. So user experience, or how long does the battery last in an actual use, I'm just gonna have to trust the manufacturers and say 12 hours, and they're both equally the same. Now, functions on the gimbal. Now, if you're not familiar with the gimbals already over here, then the Maverick over here, if you take the Maverick, in the back over here, there's a little trigger button that acts as the half down shutter button. And you can, when you're on photo mode, it acts as that. It's not customizable. Over here, you also in the front, you have a little LCD screen, and then you have a zoom kind of knob over here, which if you're using Sony cameras, you can use it as clear image zoom. You have a joystick, you have a power on and record button, you have a menu button, and you have a mode button. Now on the AK2000 over here, as you can see, there's a wheel over here. There is a trigger button in the back over here. There is another button on the side over here, which is actually a touchscreen lock. You have a touchscreen in the front over here. You have some kind of transfer button over here, which I've never used and I don't really know what it is. Turn on button, start movie recording, and a picture button over here, as well as a joystick. Now the features, and which has more features and what can you do with them, they're very, very equal. Now, in terms of the features, I think I'm gonna have to give it to the AK2000 because it has the wheel over here, and you can actually adjust more camera settings than you can on the Maverick one. Now, don't get me wrong, the Maverick does a very good job and I won't need anything else, but the AK2000 offers more features. Now, I've never actually used them because I just find it much more useful to get my camera settings already built in. But when you swipe left on the touchscreen over here, you can change the ISO, your exposure, composition, and white balance if you want that, whereas you can't do that on the Maverick. As well as the wheel can act as an extra little thing, like it can be full of focus and can move left and right and do different things. So I'm gonna have to give it to the AK2000. The app, the usability and functions. Now the AK2000 has an app called Feiyutech app, and the Maverick has the simple BGC. Just a little clarification or correction over here. The Maverick doesn't actually have an app. And at the time, I knew that some of the guys from PFY said that there will be an app, and I was hoping that it will be finished, but it still isn't finished yet. There will be an app at some point, but at this point, there isn't an app. So basically, just so you know. But I'm gonna have to give it to the AK2000 just because when I'm actually using the app, it just works. And even though there isn't that many things that you can change on the app that you can do on the actual gimbal, it's kind of useless app. There is not that much difference. I'm gonna have to give it to the AK still, that if I had to use an app, it's much more easier and simple app to use on the AK2000. Now, one of the biggest things is out of the box usability. How easy is it to use out of the box? And for that, I'm gonna give it to the Maverick. The Maverick's been so easy, out of the box, camera on, balance it on, and even if you don't get it perfect, you just use it. It's perfect. All the settings, how it is inside, it's perfectly smooth for me to get some really nice cinematic shots and just use the camera and the gimbal. Whereas on the AK2000, I was on the settings trying to balance it, got some vibrations, payload settings didn't completely work. So it was much more kind of getting the gimbal ready on the AK2000, and it wasn't as easy as put the camera on and just shoot out of the box. Out of the box, it's that one. The next one, I'd like to talk about the software update. Now, the manufacturers both have upgraded their software after releasing the gimbal. So once you buy your gimbal, you're probably gonna have to upgrade it. But which one is easier to upgrade? Now, with the Maverick, you're gonna have to follow the instructions on the PFY or Pilotfly DE website, where you can just follow the instructions and get it sorted, and that's how it works. But you have to have an internet connection and a computer to do that. Whereas on the Feiyutech AK2000, this has been by far the simplest software update on a gimbal I've ever tried. So basically, you connect your phone to it. On the app, there's like an update kind of settings on the top right corner. Press on that, it connects to the gimbal, updates it on the app, and it was so easy. That's it. So on that, I'm gonna give it to the AK2000. Now, the last category is the performance, and this is where the Maverick pulls ahead by far. Now, with the performance, let's talk about the different categories over here. Now, the push-in or all lock, I think the Maverick is going to do a much better job, and out of the box, it's just somehow the software just does its magic and it's super smooth. Whereas on the AK2000, I had little vibrations, and it was on the actual, when you walk in and things like that, you can see a bit more movements and things like that, which was much easier to get a smooth shot on the Maverick. Just a side note here as well is that I didn't use the same lens on the test shots, as you can see over here, some of the B-roll. On the AK2000, I was using the Sigma 35mm f1.4 on a Sony a6500, which is roughly around 56mm full frame equivalent, whereas the Maverick is on the wider. And just a tip over here, the wider the lens is, the less you actually see shake. So it's much harder to see a shake on a 60mm than it is to see on 100 or more tighter shot, just so you know. The next one, running. So when I'm running on Maverick, it just sometimes looks like I'm flying a drone, whereas on the AK2000, the gimbal is not quite sure what the movements are and kind of is late and stabilizing it, so it's not doing that well of a job when I'm running with it. Although a side note over here is that I've seen a very interesting running test that Brandon Lee has done. You can see this B-roll over here, or his video if you want to see the full video, where he's running on a very tight zoom lens and he's getting really good like shots on that, which I didn't get on this gimbal. And believe me, I tried to get it balanced as best as I could, but I couldn't get the same results. Next up, walking, the same thing. Maverick pulls ahead. There's much less the walking up and down movements and just smoothest as the AK2000. On the low mode, it's much easier to do that on the Maverick. Just use that and make sure that you can do that. And then boom, you're on the low mode and the camera has no vibrations. And then pull it back on the top, that's it. Now on the actual AK2000, I was really struggling to get the low mode shot actually working, because as soon as I moved it lower down, the camera started vibrating, and then I had to rebalance it and try to get the payload exactly perfect. And I think I'm still actually underpowering the camera to get no shake on there, but it just shows on the footage, so not as good as Maverick. Parallax movement, and here you can see big mistakes on the AK2000, that when you're doing a slow parallax movement, the gimbal has glitches and moves very fast, doesn't quite know how to counteract the small parallax movement around the subject. So I'm gonna give it to the Maverick easily over here. Dutch roll mode over here, when you have to be on the all follow mode on the AK2000 gimbal over here to do the follow mode, but when you're on all follow mode, it just follows the other axis as well. So it's not just a Dutch roll, it's kind of a little bit mental, which I just don't prefer it that way. I prefer it how it is on the Maverick, whereas when you're on the Dutch roll, you're gonna move your gimbal over here in front, and then it's just gonna follow one way, so it's not gonna move left or right or things like that. It's still gonna try to keep the camera straight on, not move about randomly and follow every single axis. Sports mode is quite equal on both of them, whereas I prefer how it works on the Maverick, that when you're on the sports mode, you're just gonna have to press and hold the joystick and then move, and then it just follows every single movement really, really fast. Whereas on the AK2000, you're gonna have to switch the capture mode over here onto the action mode, but it's still not doing as good of a job as Maverick. And last of all, the joystick. The joystick is much better on the Maverick because I can easily get some really nice cinematic shots on the Maverick, and how the joystick's calibrated is much better because how fast it starts moving and how slowly it kind of stops the movement is very smooth and just very well calibrated on the Maverick. It's so easy to actually just use all lock mode and use your joystick to get a really nice shot, whereas on the AK2000 I've adjusted the joystick speed to the lowest and it's way too fast, it's way too mental and way too choppy. So performance-wise, the Maverick pulls ahead big time. Now, I thought this would be an interesting comparison between two gimbals, and just, you know, one is clearly more expensive, almost 2 times more expensive than the other one, but actually the lower budget one wins in some other categories. So I hope this video was helpful for you. Let me know if you think this was helpful. And by the way, I'd like to know if you would be picking up or actually own one of these. I'd like to know which one would you pick. Comment below. I'm gonna meet you in the comment section below. If you want to pick up any of these gimbals, check out the description below for the links and discount codes. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you found it helpful. Smash it. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks guys for watching. Adios. You know, it's so distracting to have a massive monitor just down there for yourself to view, because all I want to do is just look over there when I'm talking and just make sure I'm in focus, I'm in frame, but